St. Clair Health, expert care from people who care.
Hello, welcome back to Teens Tap In. We're your hosts, Madeline and Sarah, here today at the Outreach Teen and Family Services Office with Sam, the Volunteer Services Manager at St. Clair Health. We'll be talking about building a resume and volunteering opportunities in communities.
Okay, so right now we're going to do a quick icebreaker questions. Fast 5. Are you ready, Sam?
I'm ready.
Okay, so favorite season?
Fall.
Okay, favorite sport?
Basketball.
Favorite store to shop at?
Amazon.
Okay, that's a good one. When you were in school, what was your favorite subject?
Photography.
Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, favorite animal?
Dogs.
Oh, okay, good. And then right now, we would like to thank St. Clair Health for being our annual sponsor.
At St. Clair Health, we're always improving, building on our commitment to face the challenges of today, making an impact on the communities we serve, so we can be stronger together. St. Clair Health, expert care from people who care.
So being involved in your community is very valuable in life, especially at a young age, because building a good character can be really valuable when it comes to college and work. So Sam, as the Volunteer Services Manager at St. Clair Health, you're probably very well spoken on this subject. So would you like to talk a little bit about building a strong resume?
Absolutely. I think it's something that's important for everybody to think about, no matter what career path you are wanting to go on. I think from the side of just giving back to the community, being a part of, something other than yourself is really important, and learning about yourself in that way. But it also gives you the opportunity to kind of explore other areas that you might not have originally thought of. And I think by volunteering and getting involved in your community, you can try a lot of different things that maybe bring you out of your comfort zone a little bit. And you might think, hey, I really like doing this. Maybe I can, look into this further. And that always kind of opens your world a little bit more. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think volunteering can add to a really strong resume, and just the worldly experience, getting involved in things that you maybe wouldn't have before. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I agree. I think there's nothing more attractive on a resume than experience. I know that's something that people in jobs look for the most. I know even me, summer job, lifeguarding, it's so easy to get into that. Mm-hmm. They wanted to know, are you a swimmer? Mm-hmm. Do you swim? Have you had any experience lifeguarding? And that does make a difference, because there were people that were turned away from that job, even as simple as it was. I mean, I sit on a white chair and watch people swim. And so still, I mean, resume and building that it's very important in life.
I always tell my story. The first real full-time job I got out of college, I moved to Chicago and, was working odd jobs in the city. But my first full-time position was at a nonprofit organization in the city. And I didn't have any, office experience at that time. It was mostly just part-time or temp positions. But the reason why they said they hired me was because of my history of volunteering, being a part of the community, being on councils, really kind of ingraining myself into other things, which showed, commitment and leadership and different qualities that it's hard entry level being competitive with other applicants. So I think just having some sort of leg up in that aspect and kind of showcasing what your interests are and what make you unique is kind of a nice feature, especially for entry level, fresh out of school, setting yourself apart. So that was why they said I got the job, which is something I try to carry on to the next folks coming out of school.
I like that you brought that up too, that kind of showing commitment to what you want to do in life. I know even for me, I want to be a physical therapist. I'm going to need to have, things that I do throughout even college, even now, that show my commitment to being a physical therapist. Because if I don't, I'm not going to be favorable when it comes to jobs and finding a job, finding an opening. So that's really important.
I would like to pause and thank St. Clair Health for their generosity in sponsoring the first season of Teens Tap In.
At St. Clair Health, we're always improving, building on our commitment to face the challenges of today, making an impact on the communities we serve so we can be stronger together. By creating reliable resources that recognize all of our neighbors, with access to the highest quality healthcare, advanced care close to home, and a shared humanity that delivers on our joint vision to create a healthier community for all. St. Clair Health, expert care from people who care.
Okay, now that we've talked about building a resume, let's talk about finding ways to volunteer in your community. There are many different things someone can do to be an involved member in their community, from, volunteering at a food drive to teaching swimming lessons. So Sam, would you be able to tell everyone how they can find opportunities to become involved in their own communities?
Absolutely. I think it just starts with what you're interested in. A lot of what drives people is maybe a personal connection to a cause. It could be health related. It could be, mental health. It could be a feeding program. So it just depends. But honestly, there's so many great organizations locally and even in the South Hills that people can join and take part in. I know with St. Clair Health, we have a great program. We're developing some additional opportunities for our juniors, especially, so between 14 and 18 years old. And the current opportunity we have, at least at St. Clair Hospital, is our outpatient surgical center. And so the junior volunteers there actually get pretty ingrained in the overall operations of what's involved in the start to finish of somebody's surgery. So volunteers are making medical packets, putting rooms together, doing some clerical work, but they're also helping discharge patients, pushing them in wheelchairs. So there's a lot of training, but you really get immersed into that medical culture, seeing a lot of different types of procedures. So I think that's a great opportunity for people to get involved even if medical isn't something that you want to do in the future. I think it's just really nice to be involved in that. A lot of people say, oh, my mom has had surgery here, or some sort of personal connection to that area, which makes it even more, I think, fulfilling to have and be a part of. Like I said, there's so many places that you can volunteer. And I think a lot of it, again, has to do with what your interests are. But I know St. Clair, I grew up in Mount Lebanon. I went to Mount Lebanon High School. St. Clair Health for me has always been somewhere that has been like that coveted volunteer program. You want to volunteer there, it's really, it gets a long wait list. And there used to be the junior candy stripers and all of that, which we don't have anymore. But I took over in April, and we're really kind of trying to see what other programs we can launch, especially for our juniors and our college students. So kind of stay tuned for that. But there's other places that I always recommend. So if our program books up and we don't have any more spots, I always recommend Volunteer Match. And that's a really great resource for anybody looking to volunteer, no matter what your age. You could do it as a family, you could do it individually, you could do it as a group. So you just put in your zip code and it comes up with different opportunities in the area that you can either take part in or serve on a council, which I think is also a really good opportunity for resume building. Another one is Pittsburgh Cares, which I'm sure you've heard of, that they also offer really great opportunities in the community to give back. And like I said, I've always volunteered, but it's really nice seeing it on this side and still seeing the commitment from the community and wanting to give back. So I think just a little digging into what you're interested in and narrowing it down from there. But there are really great resources like Volunteer Match and Pittsburgh Cares that I think are a great starting point. St. Clair Health is on Volunteer Match, and we've had a few volunteers approach us after that, which is a great resource for us.
So what I'm hearing is that there are, kind of, I don't want to say larger kind of ways of volunteering, because that is an absolutely fantastic. That's great what you've got going on there. That's kind of hard to find, if I'm being honest. But what do you feel about kind of smaller ways of being more active in your community, like let's say volunteering at a food bank or something as simple as that, or maybe a church or a school, maybe? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it could be, even just a one-off opportunity is a really great chance to have that connection with the community. You can look at your local church. There are a ton of opportunities, I know, especially around the holidays, that you can have the opportunity to give back. And I know they are always running like fundraisers or, walk for a cure, things like that, you can still be involved. And I know there's other opportunities like tutoring. Maybe you could be a tutor for somebody if there's something that's really an interest for you. And like I said, even the one-off opportunities where, you're volunteering maybe to help get a relay race set up, or maybe going to the library. Maybe they need somebody to help, stock books or do whatever. But it can really look like anything you want. And a lot of organizations are really just looking for people to help. And it doesn't always have to mean that you have to give, a certain number of hours over a certain number of months, but just even having that one opportunity, I think is really helpful for both the organization and the person wanting to volunteer.
So does Volunteer Match show those smaller opportunities as well? Because I think with that resource, I think especially for me, I have trouble even just finding where I can volunteer. And I think things can be done so much online these days that it can be easier for people to find those places to volunteer. So like, how does that work? Are there smaller places on there?
Oh, absolutely. There's places that will post those one-time opportunities that we talked about, and you put in your zip code. And so, it'll show you, if you're willing to travel 2 miles, 5 miles, it will show you in your area what's available and what that looks like, what organization it's with, if they have any sort of age requirements. Some places I know we have, because we're a health system, a hospital, we have, the flu shots required, the COVID vaccines required. So different places will list different requirements. And I think it's a really great place. And that's something that I always recommend to people if they're looking, because you can tailor it to exactly what you're looking for. And, there's even other places that I've never heard of that you can volunteer with. There's women's shelters, and even just doing like a food drive, you could do something on your own that you don't even necessarily have to go anywhere to do it. You can simply just give back by collecting food or, personal care items or something like that a lot of these smaller organizations especially are looking for.
Why do you think that organizations and employers look for strong resumes in people where it shows commitment to something? Because I know it is very valuable and it's very sought after, but why exactly do you think that is?
Well, I know in my experience, it honestly will show the employer, there's a commitment to something other than yourself and other than, a full-time Monday through Friday job. And I really think it gives the employer a little window into what you're like, what your interests are, how you apply yourself outside of the job. And I know for myself, when I'm hiring staff, I think it's important to see what they're doing in their free time. Everybody has other things going on in their personal life, families, maybe they're going to school. But I think it's also really nice to highlight a cause that they might be a part of or something that they're involved with, because I think it helps put a little bit of a human aspect to it, that you're not just a resume, you're not just, an applicant in the system that, you might see, oh, I volunteered with this organization too. We might have a connection. And so you can kind of build it that way. But I think it's more so from the point of view of just seeing their commitment outside of the workplace as well.
You bring up a really interesting point, because I'm a senior. So last year was kind of the year where I was starting to look at colleges and stuff like that. And I realized last year that my resume was kind of lacking a little bit. I've taught swim lessons like my whole life, but that was really like the only base that I had. And it kind of hit me that a strong resume, that's not going to get me anywhere really. If I want to ensure my chances for college and getting into college, applying for scholarships, I needed to build that up. And smaller stuff, like I started doing smaller stuff like volunteering at a church, food banks or stuff like that, helping with school, doing school events, and those stuff add up and they really do help. I mean, I'm a busy person, but I had free time to do stuff and I just wasn't filling it with anything valuable that I should be spending my time on. And I think it can really show a strong person to an employer or a college maybe. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, well, that just brought to mind a program that I was a part of in my high school. We have the Medallion Ball program. I don't know if you've heard of that. But basically you gather, I think it's 150 volunteer hours over 3 years. And at the end, if you do it, there's this big ball. And it's just like a really fun way to celebrate all of your success in that. Because I think, sometimes it's like, oh, it's work. Well, I think volunteering can bring a lot more than that, new friends, new connections with people, just something that's to give back to the bigger world, and that isn't so like every day mundane, sitting at your house watching TV. Like you're out there doing something, and yeah, I think they're really fun programs, opportunities like that can bring everyone together and just celebrate what you're doing, because I really, whatever you're doing, big or small, that's something to be proud of. So
absolutely. I think you get so much fulfillment out of volunteering, and whether you expect to or not, no matter what you're doing, especially because volunteering is different than working, where you can see the direct impact of what you're doing, which is a huge driving factor for all of our volunteers, whether that's been here at my time at St. Clair or my other organizations I've been a part of. You see the light in their eyes, the spark, and really why they're doing it, which is so great to see. And they continually, feed off of that, and it pushes them to keep going. And you get to meet a lot of other people. I know in high school, I don't think I met a lot of people outside of Mount Lebanon, high school at least. And so it is a nice time to get into the community and meet people from all walks of life and all backgrounds. And I think that only helps you in the professional world, applying and interacting with a lot of other people. So I think any chance you can get to volunteer in the community, whether it's long or short term, I think is always a benefit.
Lastly, this podcast would not be possible without the support of St. Clair Health. Please listen to the following ad.
At St. Clair Health, we're always improving, building on our commitment to face the challenges of today, making an impact on the communities we serve, so we can be stronger together. St. Clair Health, expert care from people who care.
That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much, Sam, for being on this episode with us and sharing your knowledge with everyone. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And thank you to all of our listeners for listening to this podcast episode. And it would not be possible without Outreach Teen and Family Services.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Madeline.
And stay tuned for our next Teens Tap In episode.
The views and opinions expressed in the Teens Tap In podcast represent the opinions of the hosts and their guests. The views and opinions expressed by Outreach Teen and Family Services employees, donors, and volunteers are their own and do not necessarily reflect the view of Outreach Teen and Family Services or the show's sponsors. The content here should not be taken as counseling advice. The content here is for informational purposes only, and because each person is unique, please consult your mental health provider or physician for any mental health counseling or other medical questions. The podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including, but not limited to, establishing a standard of care in a legal sense, or as a basis for expert witness testimony. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast. If you find any error in any of the content of the podcast, please contact us at podcasts@outreachteen.org. Outreach Teen and Family Services, its sponsors, donors, and partners expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages whatsoever arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast. Please go to www.outreachteen.org to see the complete notice and disclaimer for the podcast episodes.